You know, diversity and inclusion are words we hear all the time in the workplace. But what if some of the biggest, heaviest barriers are the ones we can't even see? Today, we're going to dig into the invisible chains that get forged when gender, disability, and race intersect, and see how they can really hold people back.
Okay, let's get right to it. The stakes here are incredibly high. Just look at this massive employment gap. Only about 19% of people with disabilities are employed, compared to over 66% of those without. I mean, this isn't just a number on a chart. It's a huge red flag that there are some serious systemic barriers at play. And that's exactly why we need to have this conversation.
So, most companies get it, right? Diversity isn't just a passing trend. It's become a core part of business strategy. But let's ask, what are the real tangible benefits they're hoping to get?
Well, the thing is, diversity isn't just about doing the right thing. It's a massive competitive advantage. You bring in different life experiences and boom, you spark innovation. You build in accessibility and you sidestep legal headaches. And of course, an inclusive workplace makes for a happier team and can even open doors to whole new markets you never considered. It's just smart business, plain and simple.
But here's the thing that the standard diversity talk often seems to miss. It's not just about these single, neat categories. For a lot of people, the barriers they face aren't separate issues. They actually stack up. They compound, creating these layers of challenges that are so much harder to break through.
I want you to think of it like someone is adding links to a chain. Everyone starts at the baseline, right? But for a woman, you add the first link, the double bind. For a disabled woman, you add another, the triple bind. And for a disabled woman of color, you add one more, creating the quadruple bind. See, each link doesn't just add weight, it completely changes the nature of the struggle itself.
So that first link is the double bind, and it's this classic catch-22 that so many women face. If you're assertive and direct, you risk being seen as unlikable or difficult. But if you're more nurturing and collaborative, you're seen as less competent. It's this impossible tightrope where it's incredibly hard to be seen as both effective and liked.
Now let's add the next link. This is the triple bind. This is where the stigma of having a disability crashes right into that double bind of gender. And this isn't just about how people perceive you. The consequences are very real. We're talking lower pay, a much higher chance of being stuck in part-time work, and just overall worse treatment on the job.
And if you want to see the financial cost of that triple bind, here it is, 82.5 cents. For every single dollar a disabled man earns, a disabled woman makes just over 82 cents. That is a staggering gap, and it has a massive, real-world impact on people's lives.
And that brings us to the final, heaviest link, the quadruple bind, where gender, disability, and race all intersect. The source material for this explainer uncovered a really disturbing perception that some companies actually feel there are, and I'm quoting here, fewer incentives to hire a disabled woman of color. That is the devastating result of all this compounded bias.
Okay, so these abstract ideas, these binds, they become painfully real in certain moments. And one of the most critical, most revealing moments is the simple act of asking for an accommodation at work.
Just imagine you need something pretty basic, like screen reading software. For someone who's navigating all these biases, that's not just a routine IT ticket. No, it becomes this high-stakes test. It can easily be misinterpreted as you asking for special treatment, which then triggers every single negative stereotype and just tightens those chains we've been talking about.
And really, how an organization handles this comes down to its core philosophy. The old-school medical model basically says the problem is the individual's impairment, and the burden is on them to adjust. But the much more modern social model, it flips that entirely. It says the disability is actually created by society's barriers, and the burden is on the organization to tear those barriers down. And that shift in perspective, it's everything.
Now, instead of just talking about this in theory, let's hear directly from people who have actually lived these experiences. Their voices really show the true, real-world impact of these systemic barriers.
When Monica says this, you can just feel the constant mental weight of that quadruple bind. It's this exhausting, never-ending calculation of how you're being perceived, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how good you are at your job.
Jane's story here just highlights the awful risk that comes with trying to advocate for yourself. The fear that simply disclosing your disability, which is the first step to getting help, could be the very thing that gets you penalized. It creates this impossible dilemma where just staying silent feels safer than asking for what you actually need to succeed.
And a really crucial finding from the research is that this whole process, this whole experience, often boils down to just one person, your direct supervisor. Their attitude, Their perspective can literally make or break everything. For Fran, it broke. Her boss just flat out decided she didn't need the accommodation. End of story. We're done getting your stuff. Just like that, the entire system failed because one person decided to be a gatekeeper instead of a facilitator.
But on the flip side, look at Thomas's experience. He had a manager who was responsive, who was proactive. The process worked perfectly because his manager chose to be an ally, not a barrier. It just goes to show you how absolutely pivotal that one single relationship can be.
So, the big question is, how do we fix this? How do we stop relying on the random goodwill of individual managers and actually start fixing the system itself? How can organizations forge new links of support and finally break these chains for good? Well, the research points to two really powerful, practical solutions. First, take the budget for accommodations away from individual departments and centralize it. Second, roll out meaningful awareness and sensitivity training, not just for managers, but for absolutely everyone, to completely reframe the conversation around disability and inclusion.
That central budget is a total game changer. Just listen to Kate's experience. When her manager didn't have to worry about the cost coming out of their own team's budget, their role completely changed. They went from being a financial gatekeeper to simply being a helpful guide. The entire conversation shifts from, can we afford this, to, okay, let's just get this form filled out for you. It removes the single biggest point of friction in the whole process.
And that's really the heart of it. Together, these solutions create a fundamental shift in responsibility. It's no longer on the employee who is juggling these intersecting identities to fight for every little thing they need. Instead, the responsibility falls squarely on the organization to build a system that is inclusive by its very design. It's how you make that social model of disability a reality. So, we want to leave you with this question. What's one chain that your workplace could break? Think about it. One unnecessary barrier, one flawed process, one outdated attitude. What's one single thing you could help change to make your workplace more inclusive for absolutely everyone?